Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another great chapter of Big Wave Fundamentals with All American Bigways. I am Gorka, and with me is the one and only Mr. Doug Barron. In
Hi,
today's
Gorka.
chapter, we are going to cover everything that happens. Up until now, we have covered what you do and what we do up until we get to the formation, to that red zone that we explained in chapter one. In this chapter, we are gonna talk about what happens after we get into that red zone, right before we take a dock, and after we take a dock. So throughout today, we're going to discuss the thought process of what to do before taking a dock. How do we make sure that our slot is ready and that we are ready to take that grip? Then we're going to cover, okay, once we have taken that grip, what are we supposed to do? What is the thought process? How can we ensure our own success and the formation success after we have taken that grip? And last but not least, as we've done for other chapters, we are going to cover some of the what if scenarios and some questions that we normally get asked at skills camps by some of the participants. So to start off, Doug, walk us through what are we supposed to do before docking?
So, just like Gorka said, we have now made it through the stadium, presented, identified, and now moving on our radial into slot, and we are entering the red zone at this position. So now that we're in the red zone, the first thing we want to be on level with the formation as we're moving forward. Once we've entered our slot, we're going to be fully stopped in our position based on the sight picture that you've been described on the ground and what you've walked and what you've prepped. You're going to take a breath, look across, take a grip as high up as possible. And there are other, situations where a specific placement of a grip might be recommended. But usually we want to take the grip as high as possible on the gripper, up the leg or on the arm, wherever it may be. So being on level, we get this question all the time. And I believe it is mainly a sight picture that people have yet to be able to identify. As you can see, the person in the green helmet, that would be the good example of being on level. They're in their slot. They have not been keyed in to take a grip yet, and they're on level with the formation, looking across, ready to take their grip. If we look on the comparison over here, that person is high for being in that position. So they are in their slot, but they're just not on level, in their slot, like on the radial. But that person in the blue is not ready to take a grip, whereas the person in the green helmet, they are ready to take a grip because the grips are right there and they're on level. This is like a point of view looking horizontally at what on level is. And if you look at the organizer and the person that they're taking a grip, the person that is taking a grip on them, if you look at this straight line from the organizer in the red helmet through their center point, through their grip, and the arm that is taking a grip on that person is straight on line with that. So what that means is that the sight picture, the viewpoint of that person is kind of through the grip that is in front of them. But what we want to see is that my arm is level with the grip as I'm taking it.
Yeah, if I may add to how to identify this, and we're gonna see it in a moment, we're gonna see what it should look like from your own eyes. But basically what we're trying to avoid is reaching down to the grip or reaching up to the grip. So in an ideal world, that grip, essentially our armpit and our arm is a perfect horizontal line that goes through that grip and the person's spine, the person's spine, if you will, in the case of taking a leg rip, as it is this case, which is um, most often the case.
And then, so this is an example of someone being high. As you can see, they're reaching down for the grip. Their shoulders, their armpit, they're above the grip line of the grip they're taking a grip on. Uh, What this does is it adds a bunch of extra tension and drive into the center of the formation. Right levels are bad. We get a bad body position, all of those things. But you can see in this example, and this is a very common thing, people think that they want to take a grip like that, but that's reaching down and that's putting a bunch of energy downward through the grip into the formation. So we can see, the white line, the white dotted line there. That is the kind of the energy line almost of the grip and the energy into the formation. And this would be down, or that person would be high taking a grip. So this is a point of view shot, maybe 2 or 3 rows out from the center of a formation, from the base of the formation. And you can see this is what it looks like from point of view to be on level with the formation. As you can see, this individual is looking straight through the grip in front of them. And you can see almost the grip that's in the base as well. And this is making sure everything is on level. So this is the good sight picture of what you would see if you were on level taking a grip on the formation.
So, as Doug has mentioned, how can we know if we are actually on level or not? Developing that side picture actually takes practice and it takes learning. And as you can see here, the answer is if you can see too much, then you're probably not on level. If you're doing things correctly, it's actually kind of difficult to see across. We talk about continue to see across, and the reality is because there is movement, you can actually always see a little bit more than that you would be able to see on a static picture. But if done correctly, you're looking through, essentially the grip is blocking your view. That is actually a sign that you are on level. If you're not,
As you can see in this long zipper formation, um, the first 2 rows would be on level. And then as it gets farther down the zipper, everyone wants to be a little bit higher to try to see more and more and more. And then what happens is now the formation starts getting shaped like this. And this creates all this energy through the formation as opposed of trying to see through the center or through those grips that are in front of you. Uh, so if you can see a little bit more than you're anticipating, just like Gorka said, then you're most likely high on the formation. And it goes back to what I always preach is just do your job. Your job is to see this line and nothing else. If you see more than that line, then either you're not doing your job or people around you are not doing their job. But that picture of being on level is looking through that grip that's in front of you.
so now that we have covered levels, let's actually watch a video of a dock. Um, okay.
So as you can see, this individual in the yellow jumpsuit has moved fully into their slot, fully stopped, and is taking a grip as high up on the leg gripper as possible right there. And the reason that we try to default to this is because, so there's a good stop, and then there's the grip. And again, the reason that we try to default to this higher up on the gripper grip placement is because if there are any slight levels or if there's any extra movement, we're not affecting that person's ability to fly. And what I mean by that is we're taking a grip higher up by their center of mass, and that we're higher up on the hip joint in the case of taking a leg gripper, which means that that person still has the ability to move their legs if they needed to fly. In the contrary, if we were to take a grip lower down by the knee, if I was a little bit high or if I took a harder grip and I took a grip lower at the knee, I'd be able to push the leg down easier and then impede or affect that person's ability to fly. So in default on leg grippers, again, there's different scenarios for different things, but in default, usually the rule of thumb is take a grip as high up as possible because of those reasons. One, you're closer to their center of mass, and then two, you're not going to affect or impede their ability to fly if they needed to, if there was any kind of external levels or anything else that need to be dealt with. Gorka, why don't you play that back from the approach one more time so we can see the definitive stop that this person has before that they're taking their grip. So here's their stadium, moving in, down the stadium, into red zone, stopped, and then take the grip. Because he fully stopped, then took the grip. Very good. And they're continuing to fly, and that's something that Cork is going to touch on next. But that's it. That would be a good example. And remember, just it may look like in this video it's a little bit high, and with Cork and I just kind of discussed this. The camera placement is on top of that person's head, so the point of view is a little bit high. Like if we were to get, a realistic view, then it would kind of be around that person's mouth or on their chin or something like that. But this is a good example of that person fully moving into slot, stopping, and then taking the grip as instructed as high up as possible on the leg.
Yeah, and then it's kind of hard to see from this point of view, but you could see that the concept that we spoke about in the image before of the arm kind of like being horizontal, it's kind of, you can kind of see that here. It's fairly obvious that we're not reaching down, even though it kind of looks like the point of view, as you can tell, is, as it happens with a GoPro, is higher than the eyes. So it's actually kind of difficult to show that point of view in camera, but this is the closest that we can get to it. Okay, so now let's say that we flew our approach, we exited, we saw our exit frame, we flew our approach, we stopped to take a grip, we took a deep breath, and now we are fully in the formation. Now what? You've probably throughout your big way skydiving career have heard multiple coaches and multiple people say, continue flying. Once you're part of the formation, once you dock on the formation, you're part of that formation. And once you dock on the base, you're part of the base. So what does that actually mean? What do we have to do? Keep flying where? How? What are our responsibilities? Number one is preserve the side picture and continue to look across. Everything that Doug just talked about of what we are supposed to see and not see before we take a dock continues to hold true after we take the dock, right? If the formation changes in fall rate, which it probably will, it means that we're going to have to react to that in order to preserve that side picture. It also means that with regards to side picture, if I'm supposed to clone up with that person on the red helmet and the Mirage blue container, if the formation moves, I need to react to continue to hold that side picture. So what do we mean by continue flying? Continue to hold that side picture and continue to fly your slot so that everything that we just did, if we executed correctly, holds true after and flying with that dog included. Counteract the floating by arching. What do we mean? What do we mean by this? Well, if you think about basic body mechanics, and this is one of the reasons why formations typically slow down as the more and more people get on them. I can normally fall faster when I am flying solo than when I am docking, especially if I'm double docking with my left and my right hand onto a formation or a person. Those of us that have done four-way and eight-way know that there are formations that are floatier than others, and the more grips we have on, the more the formation tends to float. Why? Because the sole just the bare mechanics of actually reaching forward and extending my arms to take that grip, that rigid sort of like double grip or side body or whatever it happens to be, is actually slowing me individually down. So what do I need to do to preserve the fall rate that I had right before I take that grip? I actually have to counteract and arching just ever so slightly to counteract that difference in body position, right? So that's number two. And then number three, ask yourself what would happen if I let go, if there's too much tension. It is very, very often, it happens often where we have tension coming back. It may not be coming from us because we may be backsliding if our legs are not out, if we're not applying positive pressure, but it may actually come from people docking from us. However, it is part of our responsibility to not let that transfer to the people that we're docking on. So how do we do if we feel that we are getting pulled away from the center, we can counteract that with positive pressure so that if I let go, nothing would happen and I continue to stay in the exact slot that I was before I took that dock.
Mhm.
Now, all of this is a lot of theory. And how do we, like, when we're jumping and when we're inside the formation, a lot of things go through our hands, go through our head, and there's constant distractions. There's people coming on. There's, a little bit of movement here and there. So what's the best way to actually accomplish this? Throughout the years, we have developed, and this is something that I teach very, very often. Um, uh, we have developed a checklist of things to do once you've taken that dog. Very, very often we think that the skydive is over. And after we make it to the formation, that's it. We're done. Well, you may have still like 25 seconds to go until you even break off, depending on the altitude and depending on how close to the formation you are and the size of the formation. So the skydive is far from being over. And the part of the responsibilities that we have as an individual flyer is to continue making sure that the air slot is preserved. I teach a checklist of three things to that are very easy to follow after you take a dock, and you go through number one, then number two, then number three, and then you go back to number one. Make that part of your visualization. What are they? Number one, arch, help with that fall rate, right? So after we just talked about why. Why? Because we probably have to counteract part of the floatiness that we have when we induce in our own body, in our own flying, when we're taking a dock with one hand or two, right? Number one, help with fall rate. Number two, counteract that outward tension. We just talked about that as well. Positive pressure. Okay, positive pressure towards the center. And number three, match levels and clone up. Look across. We talk about looking across all the time. We do this when we walk, and we do it for two main reasons. Number one is to make sure that we're on level, right? Very often, if we get distracted and look to one side, the other side up or below, now we've lost all reference as far as like whether or not we are on level. But the other one is that side picture and the person with regards to what we should be seeing in front of us, right? Many times, if I have what we call a spine slot, which should go through like which preserves a heading for an entire sector, um, I need to continue to look across to make sure that I'm still preserving that radial. If I lose sight of that, then chances are I'm probably shifting to one side or the other. So to sum her up, arch, positive pressure, look across. Every time that you take a dock, continue to think about those things and make them part of your visualization on the climb to altitude and part of your thought process as you walk. If you do it when you walk, you're far more likely to do it when you're actually flying. Okay, so now that we've covered all of that, we wanted to, just like we've done with other chapters in the past inside of this program, we wanted to cover some of the what ifs that we have been asked over the years. So, Doug, what should I do if my slot grip is moving? If the person in front of me is actually my slot is there, I should be able to take a slot, but there is too much movement, whether that is up or down or to left and right.
Jump on the grip and grab it to stop it. Is that no? Totally kidding. Absolutely not. Um, I always kind of explain it like in a humorous way that like imagine taking a grip is like courtship in a relationship. If the grip is moving around and you're trying to chase it, you're probably not going to get it. You want to let it settle and then let it tell you that it's ready to be taken. So in that scenario, if the grip in front of you is moving around, you're going to go back into your original checklist, go into a little bit of a mini stadium. If there's any kind of levels or any kind of movement, let it settle. And then once it's static, then you can make the move back into the red zone, forward, take a breath, look across, match the fall rate, and take the grip in the correct position. If it's moving, if there's anything going on, the first thing that you're gonna do is go back up into a mini stadium. That's like your safe haven. Let anything, if something's going weird and you don't like what's going on, back up into a little stadium, give it a little bit of room, give it the time it needs to settle itself out, and then make your approach back into the formation.
I always say if your slot is moving, then your slot is not ready. And if your slot's not ready, don't take grips yet. And it's actually very similar to our next question, which is what if the person I'm docking on is not there? The protocol may actually vary. And it's always good to ask the coach or the main organizer, what would they expect if that were to be the case? I would say 95% of the time, and this is particularly true, actually 100% of the time in our record setting and 95% of the time in all cases, um, we want to allow that person to get into the formation. And the best way to do that is to hang back just ever so slightly so that we're actually not blocking or creating traffic for that person to make it to their slot. They could be low and they may not make it to the formation, but they could have had a bad exit. And it's a matter of 5 or 10 seconds that they should be able to go in and take that slot. In a record setting, you don't want to mess with that. You don't want to take another person's slot because it will create a tremendous amount of confusion, not just for you, but everybody else around you. If they see you in a slot that you're not supposed to be, but they're supposed to dock on you, you may actually be hurting more than helping if you jump and take that person's slot. Okay. So 9 times out of 10, just allow them, be a team player and allow them to actually take that slot and that grip. Now, that doesn't mean that we need to hang back like 500 feet below, above and behind. We can be close enough so that we are minimizing the delay of when that person gets to their slot. We're right there, ready to take it. Okay. There
Mhm.
is a balance of being too close and too ready and creating traffic, or too far back, creating too much of a gap. But then now we just induced a delay, not just for us, but everybody who is behind us is going to have to be behind us. They can't jump, ahead of us. So we want to essentially be on I would call it a small stadium, right? A little bit far
Mhm.
back, enough so that anybody would be able to take that slot without having to fight for, through the traffic to take it. But not so slow that not so far back that we're actually creating a delay on the build process.
Correct. I call it a mini stadium. Um,
Okay.
so in my just if I can elaborate real quick on this, when I get asked this question, I would tell the person that if the person never makes it to their slot, I a success criteria or a goal that they have achieved is that they are in the mini stadium and they could take the grip and they could take their slot if they were there. But their ability to stay away in their mini stadium and show me that they're still in slot on heading on radial, ready to take the grip, that is a success criteria that I like to see achieved.
Absolutely. Okay, and then the last one of our questions, there's a lot of tension. I've already taken my grip, but there is a lot of tension. Should I let go? When is a good decision to let go? Doug?
If you are not aiding in success of the formation, then let go. And if you are questioning whether you are aiding in success of the formation, let go. If you would go back to revert back to all the things we just talked about. Am I on level? Am I on heading? Am I pressing forward and reducing any of the tension in the formation? On this topic, I wanted to bring this up earlier, and I hear it all the time. They were pulling on my legs. They were moving behind me. They were doing all that. That's probably going to happen at some point, maybe on every jump. We're going to do the best that we can to reduce and minimize any of that through all of these proper steps. But somebody's going to probably pull on you a little bit and move you around a little bit. And your job, just like Gorka said, is to maintain your position on level, on heading, and in slot. If you are unable to achieve those things based on what's happening behind you, and that they are getting pulled or you're moving off level or what happens, if you let go, that should then also tell all the people behind you, like, oh, I'm not doing my job either as well. But remember, it's way easier to fix yourself than it is to hinder the whole formation and come back up, you know? So if you don't feel like you're aiding to the success of the formation, let go. If you're super high or super low and you don't have the sight picture that we just described, let go. And then go back through your checklist and start over.
That's right. Make sure that as you are ready to approach again, you do a complete stop, you are on level, your side picture is correct, etc., etc. Um, okay, well, that is actually all the content that we have for today. As you can see, it was a little bit shorter than other times, but we wanted to make sure we wanted to create our own section about what to do when we are actually flying in the formation. It generally doesn't get explained as much as we would like, and we wanted to create our own chapter around it. Doug, anything you want to add?
No, I mean, just like we've been talking about, do your job, check your boxes, go through the checklist. It's all the same, no matter what part of the skydive is. If you're from the exit to identifying, moving onto your radial into the stadium, from the red zone into the slot, there are always check boxes along the way, and we need to make sure that we check those boxes in order. If we ever skip a step or we don't check a box, then probably something is going to happen that we don't want to happen. So do your job, match fall rate, breathe, smile, have fun. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you on the next one.